Hello students, in our upcoming lessons we are going to talk about some learning theories. We are starting it with the classical conditioning theory given by Ivan Pavlov. Ivan Pavlov was a behaviorist. So first we should understand what is behaviorism. Behaviorism is a school of psychology which focus only on the observable behavior. It does not give any importance to the internal cause or internal cognitive processes. According to the behaviorist approach, the environment is the modifier of learning and behavior, not individual characteristics. Now, who was Ivan Pavlov? So, Ivan Pavlov was a Russian physiologist and psychologist, and he came up with the classical conditioning theory accidentally. Actually, he was working on the digestive system of a dog, and he noticed that the secretion of saliva in the dog on the sight of food or hearing the footstep of the caretaker has some similar pattern. Now, before starting the classical conditioning theory, we should be familiar with some words. The first word is stimulus. Stimulus is anything or event which causes a response, and response is our reaction which occurs due to the stimulus. For example, while working in kitchen, if we hold a hot plate by mistake, we move our hand away. Here, holding the hot plate is a stimulus and moving our hand away is response. We should also understand conditioning. Conditioning is a form of learning in which capacity of eliciting a response is transferred from one stimulus to another. Now we will discuss the experiment done by Pavlov. Let me show you the arrangement. This was the arrangement done in the lab. Here a rubber tube was inserted in the salivary gland so that the secreted saliva can be kept in a measuring cup. Then some food, that is meat powder, was offered to the dog. Due to the smell of the food, the dog secreted some saliva. Here we can say that the smell of the food is the neutral stimulus or unconditioned stimulus which created unconditioned response, that is the secretion of saliva. Now they changed the process and presented the meat to the dog and rang the bell at the same time. Here, dog would associate the bell with the meat. Here, the sound of the bell is our conditioned stimulus. During the process of conditioning, the response we are getting is also the unconditioned response. Eventually, the dog was salivating on the sound of bell even if the food was not presented. Here, the sound of bell is our conditioned stimulus which is eliciting our conditioned response, that is the secretion of saliva. From here, Ivan Pavlov concluded that we can condition the behavior of the learner. Now we will discuss some principles based on this theory. The first principle is principle of acquisition. It is the initial stage of learning when a response is first established and gradually strengthened. For example, imagine that we are conditioning a dog to salivate in response to the sound of a bell. We repeatedly pair the presentation of food with the sound of the bell. We can say the response has been acquired as soon as we can gradually reinforce the salivation response to make sure that the behavior is well earned. Now the second is principle of extinction. Extinction occurred when the occurrence of conditioned response disappear. This happens when a conditioned stimulus is no longer paired with an unconditioned stimulus. Next is principle of spontaneous recovery. It is the reappearance of the conditioned response after a rest period. Now, the next principle is principle of stimulus generalization. It is the tendency for the conditioned stimulus to evoke similar response after the response has been conditioned. For example, if a child has been conditioned to fear a white rabbit, the child will exhibit fear of objects similar to the white rabbit. I can give one more example of this. Once I had an accident with a white car. So after few days, when started driving my scooty again, whenever I have a sight of white car on the road, I used to get frightened because I had associated the fear with the stimulus, that is white car. Now, principle of discrimination. Discrimination is opposite to the phenomena of stimulus generalization. It is the ability to discriminate between two stimuli when one of the two similar stimuli is consistently followed by an unconditioned stimulus while the other is not. Now we will discuss the classroom implications of the Pavlov theory. Classical conditioning is used in language learning by associating words with pictures. For example, in lower classes, whenever we teach the alphabets, we associate a particular alphabet with a particular picture so that students learn it in easier way. It can also be used to develop good habits in children such as cleanliness, punctuality, respect of elders, etc. through the use of conditioning. It can also help us in breaking of bad habits and elimination of fear through the use of reconditioning process. It can also help us to develop favorable attitude towards our subject and school and the teaching learning process. Thank you.